Hello, my name is Curtis Valentine with the Reinventing America Schools Project. Welcome to Black Wall Street for Education. We are glad you are available to join us today and look forward to an amazing panel. The American public education system is its own economy. In 2016 and 17, total expenditures for public education, elementary and secondary schools in the United States amounted to $739 billion, or $14,439 per public school student, whether it's contracts for busing, food catering, cleaning services and supplies, professional development, school supplies, landscaping, building maintenance and construction, and education technology. There's wealth being created in predominantly Black school systems with or without the Black community benefiting. Fortunately, we have an all-star panel to tackle perhaps the most important question we'll ask ourselves. Can we harness the economic power of our education system to empower our community? I'm glad I have an amazing panel with me today. I'm going to ask them all to introduce themselves and the work that they do. We're going to start with our sister, India Johnson.
Hi, I'm India Johnson. I am the founder and executive director, founding school leader and executive director at Thrival India Academy, located in Indianapolis, Indiana.
Thank you for being here. We're going to stay in Indianapolis. Mr. Robert Marshall.
My name is Robert Marshall. I'm the founder and executive director of Vanguard Collegiate of Indianapolis. We are a charter 5 through 8 middle school nestled in the heart of Hallville, USA on the near northwest side of Indianapolis.
Thanks for being here. Take it down south to Atlanta, Brother Byron Wilson.
Hi, I'm Byron F. Wilson. I'm the founder and headmaster of the Wilson Academy in Atlanta. We are a private STEM and financial education focused program K through 12. We also have a campus opening in September in Ghana and a few months after that in Soweto and South Africa.
And last but certainly not least, you all know him, the great Roland Martin.
Roland Martin, host and managing editor of Roland Martin Unfiltered Daily Digital Show, also co-founder along with my wife, Reverend Dr. Jackie Hood Martin of School Choice is Black Choice Initiative.
Great, let's get started. There are historical models for wealth creation in the Black community. In 1921, Tulsa's Greenwood District was a center of Black wealth. The community of roughly 10,000 residents was thriving and supported Black-owned movie theaters, barbershops and salons, restaurants, hotels, grocery stores and luxury shops, a savings and loan bank, a hospital, along with offices for Black lawyers and doctors. The funding associated with managing a school system was also recirculated in the community. Roland, I want to start with you first. You own one of the most successful African-American run media and production companies in the country. Why is it important for you to do what you do, having full control over your businesses? And what are the lessons learned that we can have from this historic decision to control your message and your media company?
The nation's first Black newspaper was Freedom's Journal. They were launched on March 16, 1827. In their lead editorial, they wrote, "We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us." And the reality is, when you are the one who owns, then you are the decision maker. It's no different than for somebody who rents a house and the person who owns the house. The person who rents the house is subject to whatever the owner decides. If the owner decides to sell the home, then they got to find some place where else to live. If the owner decides to make modifications or changes, they get to do so. Those who own, they're the ones who get to make decisions. Unfortunately, for too many of us African Americans, we have been so accustomed to operating as employees and not employers. So many of us have been waiting for somebody to write us a check versus us writing the checks. Tyler Perry talked about this at the BET Awards a couple of years ago. I actually had him come speak to the National Association of Black Journalists. Folks should go to my YouTube channel and check this out, where he talked about all of this emphasis. He said, look, he said, Oscar's so white. He said, that's fine. He said, you're fighting to have a seat at the table. He said, but I prefer to build my own table. So when you look at what he's doing there in Atlanta, owning a 250-acre studio, the people who he's employing, he is completely in charge of his destiny. This is the argument that I have made, how I've literally flipped rooms. I'm talking about rooms of 500 and 1,000 people who came in opposing charter schools, who came in opposing the view of school choice. And I said, do you want black kids to be able to have black history? They said, yeah. I said, you get to control the curriculum. You want more arts? You want more? You want more drama and you want STEAM? He's like, absolutely. I said, you control the curriculum. I said, do you want black folks to actually benefit from the software contract, janitorial contract, the food services contract? They're like, absolutely. I said, you can do that when you control the school. I said, so now you control the curriculum, you control the education, you control the contracts. So why in the hell would I oppose it? Every single time folks go, I need to revisit my view. It is because we are so used to somebody else controlling, we can't fathom us actually being the ones who control.
Thank you for that. I want to go to some of these school leaders to find out what's actually happening on the ground with the power that you just outlined so well, Roland. Whether it's contracts for busing, food catering, cleaning services and supplies, rental development, school supplies, landscaping, building maintenance and construction, and education technology, there is wealth being created. India, how much did having control over your budget and who you contract with play in your decision to start your own school?
So 100%. I know I was a teacher for 7 years before I started my school, and I always had opinions about what needed to happen, when it needs to happen. And I said, I need to start my own school so I could have control over these things. But the reality is, as long as we are public schools, the public still has far more control, and charter schools are public schools, still has far more control over what we do than we would like to imagine. So for me, I have control over programmatic budget, but when it comes to the operational budget, when it comes to transportation, food service, construction, these things that are huge contracts, I don't have the autonomy to spend that money. That money comes through the state, through the district. So of course, personnel, my staff is 90% Black. When it comes to the smaller contracts, we're trusted with those, but there is still definitely a systematic barrier for leaders of Black run public schools, whether they be charter or traditional, where we're not able to tap into those resources and steer them in the way that they need to go.
Byron, what about you? How did having control over your budget and how much did that play in you deciding to open up your own private school?
100%. I didn't start with very much at all. And it's a double-edged sword because we're not a charter, we're private. So we do have that complete autonomy, but at the same time, then you can't access some of the public funding like Sister Johnson can in a charter school. And then you become more reliant on other sources. But at the end of the day, I agree with Roland in that if you don't have the ownership, you have no control. And then how can you realistically benefit Black students if you can't control your curriculum? That's the bottom line.
Robert, what about you?
I actually started out as one of those people that Roland talked about that, 6, 7, 8 years ago, I was anti-charter until I really started to dig and I realized, you know what, we too can play this game and we have an opportunity to change the narrative and take the bull by its horns. And so the autonomy that India referred to is something that was extremely attractive for me. So having the ability to spend money where and how we need it. I've long said since I've gotten into this that a school can change the ecosystem around it using the state and federal funds that it receives. And so we established early on a threshold that 60% of our dollars needed to be spent with minority and women-owned businesses. And in our first 2 years, we ended up with about 73% of that money going back to Black Indianapolis, which equated to just around $2 million, right? And so these are situations where, we're doing janitorial contracts where they're employing Black and brown people in our school, right? We're talking about food service. And so making sure that we're hiring the local brothers and that we got the seasoned chicken that we're serving our kids, right? And so for us, we're trying to show and build this model where, schools can follow, where they can reinvest directly into the community that they're supposed to be serving.
As I mentioned previously, there are millions, billions of dollars that are going into our communities every year for public education. But in many places, we are not seeing that translated into wealth creation, particularly in the Black community. According to the Brookings Institute, at 171,000, the net worth, of a typical white family is nearly 10 times greater than that of a Black family at $17,150. In New Jersey, my home state, the net wealth of a Black person is $179, while the net worth of a white person in New Jersey is $106,000. In Washington, D.C., it's $3,500 for Blacks to $284,000 for whites. In Philadelphia, it's $3,600 for Blacks and $147,000 for whites. 41 times the Black wealth number for whites in Philadelphia. So Roland, I want to come back to you. In discussions about building Black wealth or supporting Black-owned businesses, we rarely discuss the benefits of creating our own schools. Why is that?
Well, one, we have not had a continuation, if you will, of what we used to do. So that's first. And I think what happens is, I think what often happens is, if you don't know where you came from and you don't know what used to be the case, then you're completely unaware of what the possibilities are. So when I think back to, if you read James D. Anderson's book, The Education of Blacks in the South, from 1860 to 1935, what folks will discover is that when white abolitionists came down south, there were already 500 schools that had opened outside of after the Civil War, after the Emancipation Proclamation. The white folks were shocked, and Black people were like, "Oh, we wasn't waiting on y'all ass. We already started." So what you have is this significant history of African Americans creating and building these institutions, but then you have this period where that stopped being promoted. I go back to narrative. The reason I am so insistent with Black media is because that's who controls and tells our story. You're not going to hear that story being told consistently on CNN, MSNBC, Fox News, ABC, NBC, CBS. It's not going to happen because that's not what their mission is. And so if you are constantly hearing that we built schools, that we built banks, that we had media institutions, that we all these things, then it's not foreign to you. I flew on a private jet with my fraternity brothers, my Alpha brothers. And I sat in the lobby and I was waiting for him to come. And I looked around. I was the only African American there. He's Black and I'm waiting on him. And I'm looking around and I'm seeing all these white kids. And I'm sitting here, and this is what hit me. I said, these white children are going to grow up thinking that flying private jets is normal. I'm the only African American there. So if we see Black folks who own and control schools, if we see Black CEOs who own and control their companies, brothers and sisters, then it's normal. That's what we do. It's not foreign. And that's the difference. What we have seen over the last 50 plus years, we have seen African Americans being taught that we can't own, we can't control, we can't be the decision maker. And so then it's, but, and that's why people go, you own this? You own this? So hold up. So I don't need to wait for somebody white to walk. No, you talk to me. I just last point. I literally visited 4 places today looking for new office space. My lease is up, and it's a brother who owns a company who I'm dealing with finding me in place. And he was talking about my timeline. I said, bro, let me help you out. There are no committees. I don't have to go back and meet with a board. I am the committee. I am the decider. I can make the decision when I feel like it. That's what I'm talking about. So when I decide we can hire more people, we do. When I decide that we can buy this, we do. That's what ownership does, and that's why we have to let our folks, they gotta see it. They gotta feel us, they gotta touch us to go, man, you real. That's how we have to do it.
That's a freedom imperative. We talk about, that's a freedom imperative you're talking about, Doc. The freedom to make those decisions, absent control. I am so glad that we have panelists like we do here, because this idea of normalizing Black leadership and Black school founders is something that we have to take forward. And I'm glad that South by Southwest is giving us this platform to talk about how we normalize Black-run school. At the same time, folks love to talk about historically Black colleges and homecomings, represent for their colleges. Understand these colleges, for the most part, were founded by Black people, and 150 years later, many of them are still standing. A lot of this stuff is right in front of our face if you understand the history. And so glad that we have people like Byron and Robert and India here today to say, let's normalize Black-run schools. Gaps in wealth between Blacks and white households reveals the effect of accumulated inequality and discrimination, as well as differences in power and opportunity that can be traced back to this nation's inception. Inequality and discrimination have had a lasting impact on us as African Americans and our own trust in our own communities, our trust in supporting the very Black-run businesses that we romanticize oftentimes when we talk about places like Rosewood and Greenwood and historically Black colleges. So India, I want to come back to you. In your opinion, in your experience, what are some of the obstacles to garnering the support from within our community to invest in Black-run schools like yours here in Indianapolis?
That is difficult for me to answer that question, because I don't look at our community as one with deficits. I'm always looking at the root of the issue, or what is the influence from outside of our community that is causing us to engage in the way that we do. So when Roland said, it's not CNN, it's not MSNBC, a lot of what I think about when I think about my public school that I founded and run in this city, I have a Fox soul. Like, it is like Fox soul. They gave me a channel on a streaming network. We get some people on Zoom and we can talk about it. And I feel like I'm running something, but it's still under an umbrella of this larger institution, and they have the final say. So a lot of times that's what it comes down to. There are things that I know I need to do that my students and my community deserve, but my hands are tied because of state regulations, because of federal guidelines, because of district guidelines. And that does more to keep my community from being able to support than anything else from within the community. My hands are tied. I become an actor of oppression, even though my whole goal, my objective is to do the opposite of that. But as long as I'm operating from within this system, I still have to do some very oppressive things, or find ways to work around them, which I've become skilled at, but those are my challenges.
Let me ask you a follow-up then. What would you do with the freedom that you discussed that you would have if you didn't have a lot of the bureaucracy on top of you?
I would decolonize. Now I've decolonized the minds of all of my staff in my mind, and I mean as best as we can. But the entire idea of school being an oppressive place where when a Black child walks in, he's told that what he's wearing, what music he listens to, how he speaks, how her hair is wrong. We have to flip that. Right now, school was developed by those 12 white men in a way where it was designed around how these people live their life. If we design school around how we live and engage in our life, it would look and sound more like church that a lot of people go to. It would look and sound a lot more like our family reunions, and we would feel more affirmed in this space. It would be about self-actualization as opposed to being about grades and GPAs and getting into colleges or universities, which then cause more trauma on us and put us in debt more than it does actually enrich us as individuals. Those are the kind of changes that I intend to make once I break free of this oppressive system.
Byron, I want to come to you. The long-term benefit and the vision we're talking about for a country, for a community, where we're able to recirculate dollars within our own community by investing in our own businesses, especially schools, require a level of trust and support within our community to support the businesses that we're talking about now, hopefully that more are being created. What has been your experience, both here in the US, but also within the African diaspora, where you also have other schools? What is your experience in some of the obstacles that you have with trying to get support within our community, but also some of the things that you've done in order to garner support from within our community to support your Black-run school?
So the biggest challenge is the psychological impact of colonialism, and it impacts us in America in the same way it does in South Africa. As you know, I kind of live back and forth between Atlanta and Joburg, and it's the same thing. The bottom line is, and we're going to talk about this, we've got to say this, the real problem is that Black people think white people's things are better. That's the actual real problem.
True.
That's the biggest problem. I have to, and I'm sure India will tell you the same thing. We have to fight two fronts. I have to fight against the white institutions, but then I have to fight against my own people, because there's no reciprocity at all. Black people readily send their Black children to white private schools. I don't get it the other way around. Our numbers are outstanding. This is not to brag, it's just there's the numbers. The things that our students have accomplished, nobody's doing what our kids are doing. I don't even get white applicants because they understand our mission and our leadership, and all they really need to understand is that a Black man is in charge. But even the concept of free education is actually just unique to America. It doesn't matter how poor the school is in Africa, in South Africa, or West Africa, you have to pay. There's an associated value with education that we don't have here. So again, hands down, the biggest challenge is just our concept of value.
That point, the psychological piece, we really don't talk a lot about the need to reprogram Black America. Dorothy Cotton, the only Black woman in the inner circle of Dr. King and the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, it blew me away when I read her book I read her book after I interviewed her. She did her last sit-down interview with me before she died in 2018. She said that when you want to join a SCLC, you couldn't just join. You had to go through her citizenship education program first. They would then assess you, and then if you need to be reprogrammed, they would reprogram you, and then you can join SCLC. The reality is a lot of us need to be reprogrammed because we are defined by white supremacy. And so white folks think they stuff don't stink, and they think that they are the best, second class, and we enforce that. But we got to really go deeper with it, and that is this here. America has always monetized Blackness, but the only people who are not able to benefit from the monetization of Blackness are Black people. So we are early adopters to technology. We are the greatest influencers in America. We are the greatest tastemakers in America. We take something that folk could not stand. If you wore some Timberlands in when I was in elementary school, They would dog you. The hell you coming to school in some construction shoes? We took black people took construction shoes, made it sexy and hot, a multi-billion-dollar industry. That's what we do. And others have built the beauty of black women has been degraded in America since the moment we got here. Lips, hair, hips, thighs, take your pick.
When it comes to schools, when we talk about the colonization of our minds, how we have owned white supremacy, and it's just something that exists. I remember being a teacher when I was in grad school saying, why don't they assess rhythm? Why isn't rhythm and keeping a beat assessed on any standardized test? Because obviously this country values music. We have Broadway. We have, I mean, it's everywhere. Like, it is everywhere around us. You can't go to a sporting event without a band playing, without a musical performer. So why is it that keeping a beat and rhythm actually isn't something that's assessed? Because it's a test that you probably won't automatically pass. It is something that we do have in us innately, but it is not valued to be assessed, because we would more than likely pass that test at a higher rate than our white counterparts would. But it has as much value as anything else. Like, I still remember a lep is a ball from the memory test that I took when I was in second grade, almost 30 years ago. You assessed my memory to assess my executive functioning, but you didn't see value in my ability to keep a beat, even though everywhere I turn and I go shopping at H&M, if I'm eating at a restaurant, there's music all around me. We value that, but we can't create assessments that we will pass the way that white folk can create assessments the way that they'll pass. We're changing that. We have got to change that. We have to rig the system in our favor the way that the system has been rigged in theirs for quite some time. And while we were fighting for, we thought we were fighting for inclusion, but we were just fighting for humanity. If we had just been fighting to be treated humanely this entire time, we would have been fighting to be included in something we really don't want to participate in anyway. We like the way we dress. We like the way our hair is. We like the way we sound. We like the way that we engage with one another and with the world. We just want you to treat us humanely. I don't really want to be invited to your cookout. I don't want to eat your food. So if we just have to accept that, and it's not a hate thing. It simply is, I want my humanity to be acknowledged. I'm going to acknowledge your humanity. We can either do that existing together, or we could do that from over here, but humanity is humanity. Now,
Curtis, if I can slide in real quick, she mentioned rhythm. She mentioned rhythm, and we're talking about education. We love to talk about these amazing educators. We think about Mary McLeod Bethune. We think about Marva Collins. But a name that we should always mention, because when she talked about rhythm, Harriet Ball. Harriet Ball. There are folks watching right now going, bro, you losing me, Harriet Ball. Okay. Y'all heard of Kip? The entire Kip academic structure is built on the teaching methods of Harriet Ball. One of the Kip co-founders was a teacher at the same school she was at. He hears all this noise across the hall and all these kids, and he's like, what is going on? Walks across the hall, and he's watching Harriet Ball use rhythm, music, and rhyme to teach the kids math and English. He stands there and is watching her use rhythm to teach. That's what inspired him to launch Kip. She passed away a few years ago, had a heart attack. Harriet Ball, it was the creative force that caused him to go, man, that's how we get kids to learn. So what does that mean? When you see a second grade black kid who they say struggling to read, but can give me every single word in a rap song, maybe I need to stop trying to teach them a conventional way And if I use music to get them to learn, I can teach them a different way. All I'm saying is, if you use our assets, and just what India said, stop using somebody else's model where we can't flourish, and realize, wait a minute, if this is how we roll, because we were able to communicate on plantations with music. They used certain songs that they would sing, and the slave master had no idea what they were singing about. They would flip words and phrases, and the other slaves knew what they were talking about. How they used drums as well. That has always been in the DNA of people of African descent. What we've done is completely escape what is in our DNA to take on something foreign and then wonder why we can't succeed, because it ain't in your DNA.
Exactly. We can't escape what's in our DNA. It is in our DNA, and we keep they're trying to teach us that there's something wrong with acknowledging that we're all not the same, or we don't see color. We are who we are. It's in our DNA. And I would like for us to be able to embrace that, as opposed to trying to strip ourselves of who we are and what makes us beautiful, powerful, unique, magical beings, to be something over here, which doesn't even rock with who we are. Because when we go back home, we end up still being those same people who we pretended we weren't when we were out there facing in the public. It doesn't make any sense to me.
I want those who are listening in to understand and see what just happened just there. We've expanded the definition of cultural appropriation to include education now. Just pay attention to that. When you think of cultural appropriation, it's not just what we wear, it's not just what we drive, it's not just how our hair, it is how we teach, how we educate, and how we pour into people, that when you hear certain people speak, you get goosebumps. Remember that person, who that person was, the energy they bring to that is innate in our DNA. So there's appropriation happening even in our education system. At the same time, a brother mentioned earlier, there's still this sense of distrust, and not because of what it is, it's just what the label, the color of the person who's actually bringing it forth. And again, that programming happens obviously within the white community towards us, but often unfortunately happens within our own community. I want to talk about, once we get past that, there's still other obstacles to really, accessing the resources that Byron talks about, these public resources that a lot of these schools can benefit from. There's politics, and Roland, you and I have gone around the country on your tour and have talked about the policy, the government, the walls that have been put in place to create the obstacles to this freedom imperative we're talking about. And so in addition to these obstacles sort of in this mindset, there are still external and political inequality and discrimination existing in our community. So I want to get back to you. Through your tours, what have you learned about how local government and political divisions impact the growth of Black school founders like the three we have on today?
What we do is we focus on what we think is the most important thing really isn't. So let me explain that. White America has no problem with us focusing on social justice. They got no issues with us focusing on mass incarceration. When we start talking about the money, then it changes. America had no problem with Dr. King talking about civil rights. But when Dr. King started talking about the money, that's when America's like, oh, hell no. No, Negro, you going out your lane. Black folks told him, what do you know about international affairs? What do you know about foreign policy? He understood basically, I don't know why we killing brown folks in a country who want to be able to choose their own destiny because we want to control them. He understood colonialism. What happens when I've traveled around this country, folk have spent a lot of their energy saying, man, we gotta have this and we gotta have that, and it's the buildings, it's the curriculum. I keep saying, no, this is America, it's the money. If you don't get to the money, then you cannot do what you need to do. look, I'm sitting here in Washington. Look, 20 years ago, probably 20 years ago, I can't sleep one night. I decided to go walking, and I was literally staying down the street from the White House, and I'm standing in front of the White House, and I'm standing there, and I'm looking at the White House. I'm like, oh, all lit up. Then I looked to the left, and I went, what's that? So then I walked down. I said, damn, that's the Treasury Department. Then I went,
On the same property.
I said, Treasury Department is the only federal agency that shares along with the White House. White House power. Treasury is money. Power, money, money, power. You can walk 100 steps outside of the side of the Treasury Department. You in the East Wing of the White House. If you do not get to the source of the money, but then begin to unpack and unroll that, just gonna give you an example. The greatest collection of black wealth in America are held by black people who work in the public space. Public workers. Somebody's watching going, what are you talking about? All these tech companies who come to South by Southwest are completely funded by the labor of black and brown public workers. I know somebody's watching right now going, okay, this brother, he's losing me. Because venture capitals gave us our money. No, where did venture capitalists get their money from? The greatest investors in America are public pension funds. Who are public pension funds? They represent the money of public workers. So the federal government has a nearly $1 trillion pension fund. What's the percentage of black and brown people who are federal workers on the federal level? Now let's go to New Jersey, New York, California, Texas, Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia. Each one of those states have public pension funds. They are investing in Wall Street. They are investing in private equity. So we are I ran to school leaders trying to get these white funders to invest money in black schools to benefit black children when these white funders made their money from going out and getting investments from pension funds, and their money came from black and brown people. So what we have to do is to say to our black and brown public workers, your job is to put pressure on your pension fund to say, don't you invest in any private equity firm that does not invest in black and brown people, which means that you need to be investing in black people with these schools, because that's how you actually change it. When you start with, so for me in advertising, they get the money, the companies get the money to the white ad agencies, who in turn don't want to talk to us. And so when the companies say, well, talk to my agency, I'm like, no, you tell them, it's your money. You tell them what to do. See, I'm following the money. King followed the money. A. Philip Randolph followed the money. As long as we are fixated on electing somebody, or man, we need to fight mass incarceration, and I'm not saying that we don't, we should, but if you are not fighting where the money is, who the money flows to, then who the money doesn't flow to, because this is real simple. If I'm able to choke you off from the money, then I'm choking off who the money goes to, then I'm choking off who the money benefits. So I have a complete chain where I've choked off black people. And so, and that's the piece. I control the money. I'm trying to get us, so the reason I support charters is because if I control the school, I get the pot of money. I ain't fighting a school board. Can y'all invest in our kids? Damn that. I got the money for the school. And if I outperform your schools, I want now 3 schools. I want 5 schools. I want 10 schools. There's no reason in the world we don't have multiple KIPS, multiple Yes Academies. There's no reason in the world. So we are fixated on the wrong thing. If you ignore the money, you've already lost the war.
Ooh, Roland, if I could just, you and I need to have another conversation. So I just want to push you a little bit further, because that's not, I can't say that charter schools are the answer, because
no, I didn't say the answer. Yeah, they're part of the answer. They're not
step one. Like
They're not.
we're at step one right now. We have got to access that Black wealth and pull our wealth out of this system and say that we're going to use this wealth to create our own system. Like we have to then find, there's enough Black people who led school systems, led at the district level, led at the network level, where we could take those Black people, decolonize their minds, and they have the experience, the power, the access to be able to run districts on their own. But we have to create our own system entirely. We got to depoliticize this conversation, because it's not about politics. At the end of the day, what you're saying is right. It's about where the resources lie. But these politics on both sides like to convince Black people to be these pawns fighting against each other, fighting this losing. We're gonna lose either side of this battle until we step off of the battlefield entirely. At the moment that I access Black wealth, I can change the game for Black students. I know that to be a fact. But if we keep trying to play their game within this system that was designed for us to be programmed, to continue to be at the bottom, to be the workers and not the creators, to be the passive recipients and not the doers of whatever it is, we're going to continue to lose. No, I don't want another KIP, and y'all can quote me on that. I don't want another KIP across this nation. I don't. Because what does that teach the students? If you dress like you work at Best Buy, if you follow these strict rules, if you walk on the right side of the hallway, and if you shut up and eat this food silently, then you'll get somewhere. Where you'll get is
No. I think you missed it. I think you missed it. You missed it. When I say, see, you missed it. See, when I said another KIP, you're focusing on what KIP does. No, I'm speaking of KIP's capacity. See, the greatest the reason, but you can't talk about tapping into Black wealth if you don't deal with capacity. If Byron has more Black people with capacity, he now can leverage more Black dollars. The problem for us is we don't have capacity. So there are 2.7 million Black-owned businesses in America. 2.6 million have one employee. 8 years ago, there were 1.8 million Black-owned businesses in America. 1.7 million had one employee. When there were 1.8 million Black-owned businesses, they were doing an average revenue of $110,000 a year. Today, this is pre-COVID, we had 2.6 million Black-owned businesses doing an average revenue of $54,000. Hold up. So we added 700,000 new Black businesses doing half the revenue. So when people on panels go, we need more Black businesses, I say, no, we don't need more Black businesses. We need larger Black businesses. And so when I say I want a Black KIP, I want a Black-run charter network with 200 schools. See, I'm not saying I'm going to use their model. I'm going to use the YES model. I'm saying capacity. That's Black wealth is built on capacity. We got a whole bunch of small entities. We got a whole bunch of small churches. We got a whole bunch of small organizations. But when you build capacity, you now come to the table with leverage, and now I can leverage dollars. I can leverage resources. That's what I mean.
Roland, let me take two names, and you know these very well, and you're in Washington, D.C.
I think Mr. Marshall would want to jump in on that one.
And I'm gonna get him, but I want to make sure we say names like Donald Henson and Friendship Network. I want to talk about people like Earl Phelan and the Phelan Leadership Academy, two of the largest Black-run networks of charter schools.
No. Don't do that. Give the numbers. See, when we say large,
I'll tell you.
What's the numbers?
Both
13. Friendship, what about 13?
No, Friendship is currently at, I think, 22 and growing.
Okay. 22. Phelan?
Phelan is at 24 and growing.
KIP?
We know that. I'm just saying.
No. Give the number.
I don't even know the KIP numbers right now.
The KIP number is almost 200.
Oh, probably and growing.
So follow me here. So this is what you just said.
Yeah.
22, 24, 200.
Oh yeah.
So what I'm saying is, when we talk about capacity, We can't say one of the largest black. No, they are the Friendship and Phelan, the largest black. But if you start ranking 200, 24, 22. So what I'm arguing, and Friendship has a model where they could be at 100 or 200. But the question is the resources. And so I want us to think capacity, because and if you look, in 1973 there were black people got 0.0012% of all city contracts in Atlanta. Mayor Jackson said, no, that's about to change. Mayor Jackson used the power of the mayoral office to change the capacity of black businesses. So when you talk about a Russell construction today, that was because Maynard changed the capacity then. So what I'm saying is, I want us to be thinking in those terms to where we can build and grow. And now, to India's point, when you have more than one Robert Smith worth $7 billion, then when you give me 500 black folks worth 200 million. But see, I might have one Robert Smith at 7 billion. I'm gonna have one Oprah at 3.3 billion. I'm gonna have one Michael Jordan at more than $1 billion, or Jay-Z at $1 billion. But if I can sit here and all of a sudden see black businesses go from 2 million to 5 million to 20 million to 100 million to 200 million to 500 million in revenue, now I'm building an infrastructure that goes across the country that now can fund schools and fund HBCUs. See, that's the piece. So when Tyler Perry, Cicely Tyson just wrote in her book that when she told Tyler Perry how much she got paid for Sounder, Tyler Perry sometimes doubled, quadrupled, and tripled her salary of the movies that she did with him. He could only do that because he built capacity. If he was small, he couldn't sit here and I text Tyler. Tyler told me how much he paid up for 2 days worth of work. I said, damn. That only happened because he built capacity. That's what I'm arguing when I see a Kip, when I see this. So for me in the media, Roland ain't trying, oh man, if I could be as big as Urban One, hell no. I'm looking at CNN, which is now owned by Warner Media, which is owned by AT&T. I'm looking at Verizon. I'm thinking capacity. That's how we change the game.
That's Tyler my number, so because I have a plan now.
Hey, folks, those who are viewing, y'all see the energy, y'all see the passion, y'all see the vision and the steps. We're not just talking, There's strategy and there are jewels that you all heard today. And I know you all been writing stuff down. And if you didn't, rewind this and start all over again, because it's worth every minute. Absolutely. We're going to wrap up, but I want to give everyone 30 seconds to sort of give us.
Marshall could take my 30 seconds. He's been trying to get in.
No, I want you to finish up, Roland.
No. Go ahead. He can take it.
So those who are watching, they're saying, you know what? I got it. I'm on board. I believe in everything you're saying. What can I do? What can I do with the power, the platform, the resources I have to move this from a South by Southwest panel to in a moment, like Roland said, from a moment to a movement? What can I do? What can Curtis Valentine do with what I'm trying to create? What can I do, Mr. Marshall? What can I do, Byron? What can I do, India? What can I do, Roland? Really quickly, let's go around. First to you, Marshall.
In terms of closing comments, I'll be quick. One of our late great local politicians, Representative Bill Crawford, used to say, if you're not at the table, then you're on the menu. I say to hell with that table, flip it over. It's no good, and it's a wobbly table if the legs of the table are racism, misogyny, xenophobia, homophobia. It's past time for us to build our own tables with the legs of equality, community, culture, and collective economics. I would encourage anybody that is interested in doing the work that Byron's doing, that India is doing, that I'm doing, be bold and don't wait. And when you get going, don't be concerned with our people don't immediately run to what you're doing, right? Eventually, that colonization is going to start to wear off, and they're going to get tired of eating chicken. And the moment they bring that potato salad to that table with the raisins in it, they'll come.
Marshall, give me your website real quick. Marshall, give me your website so they want to follow you.
Our website is www.thevandgar, cindy.org. That's V as in Vanguard, C as in collegiate, indy.org.
Thank you so much. Brother Byron.
Yes, sir. So I think we got to be Black with intent. And what that means, be Black with intent. And what that means is, if you take the HBCs, for example, and I've been a strong advocate of the HBCs. And the reason being is we've got to recognize value rather than sacrifice. We look at going to North Carolina Central as a sacrifice because it doesn't have the facilities. Well, first of all, they got all your Black athletes. That's why they have those facilities. So you're looking at it as making a sacrifice and not recognizing the value of Black students learning together, the value of Black professors pouring into those Black students, the long-term ramification of you making that aesthetic sacrifice year one, so that year 20, North Carolina A&T State University, which is well on its way, looks exactly like Duke. See, that's what has to happen.
Come on.
No one wants to make the initial aesthetic sacrifice because they don't value Black. And if we're not going to address that, this is a waste of time.
Give me a website. Give me a website, Bob. They want to support you. Give me the website.
Sure. It is thewilsonacademy.org, www.thewilsonacademy.org.
Thank you, brother.
Appreciate
India Johnson.
All right, I'm going to start with the website, thrivalindy.org, thrivalindy.org. We on all the social medias too at Thrival Indy. I didn't tell you anything about the school. You look up the school model, it's going to be the most amazing school you've ever seen in your life. I don't need to sell it because it just is. What I would say, my closing thoughts are, Amanda Gorman told me specifically that our democracy is it's not broken, it is just incomplete. And I took that to heart. So I have every right to bring my system to the table of this democracy. There is absolutely nothing about this democracy that we brought that was for us and our people. They might give us an amendment here or there. They might try to undo something or ratify something that makes us more of a human, but there is not anything that we were brought to this system that is for us and by us. I have all the permission in the world and in the universe to do that. And Amanda Gorman told me I can. So that's what I'm doing. So follow me on this journey because we're about to change the system. I said when I was in middle school that I was going to get a Nobel Prize for changing the face of education. I didn't know what that looked like until 2 weeks ago. And now I know what it is, and we're going to do it. And Roland going to help me because he's going to text Tyler Perry.
There you go. That's a promise. All right, Roland, take us out, brother.
The point that Mr. Marshall made, I think, is critical. That many of us we got vision, we want to do these things, but we go, well, I need all this stuff to do it, so therefore we're waiting to make for all these things to fall in line to do it. Then you're gonna be waiting. When we launched this show, folk told me, man, look, you in fact, Alfred Liggins, the CEO of TV of Urban One, when I turned their contract down, asked to meet with me, and he said, Roland, it's hard starting a media company. And I said, you do realize that I'm not a full-time employee of your company. I said, brother, for the last 13 years, you've been paying my media company. I started it long time ago. I'm now about to go to another level. We started with one sponsor. We have one sponsor. That money lasted us the first 4.5 months. But we built it. Could we afford a set? Nope. So we did? We had glass tabletops and we had swivel chairs. I didn't sit here and go, damn, man, I really wish we had a set. We didn't. We focused on the show. It'd be great if we could have had people, man, but if we were here, if we had that, we not here. This is what we got. So we're going to put out a great product using what we got. And then begin to build it. 100.4 million views the first year, 260 million views the next year. We're averaging 20, 30 million views. We go from 600,000 in revenue in year 1 to 3 million in year 2. Because we built it. So what you have to start is, you have to start building. And if you got to start small, you start small. If you got to only sell, if I got the capacity where I can only if I'm trying to make jars of homemade jelly and all I can do is 10 a week, I'm gonna do 10 a week. And I'm gonna sell those 10, and then after 3 or 4 months, I might increase my capacity. Now I can output 30 a week. I'm gonna do 30. I'm not gonna sit around and, man, it'd be nice if I can do 500. I can't today, but I might be able to do 500 tomorrow. What I'm describing for you is how every single business in America started. Every single one. That McDonald's didn't always have 2,000-3,000 franchises. It was one in California. Starbucks didn't have 5,000-10,000. It was one. There is no business that started where just come out of the gate. It all started with one. But you got to then put the work in. It ain't gonna happen. And let me be to all my Christian friends. I don't want to hear that stuff about if the Lord will provide. No. The Lord is expecting your behind to do some work too. You're not going to pray your way to it happen. It's faith and works.
Thank you so much. We appreciate that. Thank you to Black Wall Street for Education panel.
Don't have it, Byron.
We appreciate you all joining us today. You all got some tools. You all, hope y'all are taking notes. Hey, the moral of the story is get to work. Get to work. If you don't use what you learned today, that's on you, because we just gave you all the blueprint. Thank you all so much for joining us today. Thank you, Roland. Thank you, India. Thank you, Byron. Thank you, Robert. Thank you to EdChoice for sponsoring this. I'm Curtis Valentine. You can find me at realmenteach.com. Let's get to work, fellas, ladies. Let's do it. Thank y'all so much.